time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur Podcast. I'm your hostess, Jeanette Anderson, and with me today, I have the fabulous and wonderful Debbie Compton. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Debbie, and then we're going to leap right in and talk about her passionate topic, which is really how to take care of caregivers, and all sorts of other topics in her journey. So we'll talk to you soon. I'm glad you're here, Debbie.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So let me tell you the official bio, and then we'll go and get the kind of real behind the scenes inside scoop. Debbie Compton is a 3-time caregiver for parents with different forms of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinsons, and vascular dementia. She's a certified caregiving consultant, certified caregiver advocate, educator for the Alzheimer's Association, speaker, and author of, count them, 9 books. Debbie's book, Caregiving, How to Hold On While Letting Go, offers actionable steps for caregivers, questions to ask doctors, in-home caregivers, facilities, and more. It's full of humor and inspiration. Debbie is also the founder of the Purple Vine LLC, whose mission is to empower caregivers with tools and strategies needed to reduce stress, block burnout, and learn to laugh again. Oh, so important, so much important work, because there's so many of us, especially in our later years, that are taking care of parents and loved ones, etc., who are dealing with things like dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. Sounds like you've got your master's degree in doing that by taking care of so many. So is that how you got interested in all of this, Debbie? Is that how you got started in this work? Is your own experience, or was this something from before that?
Oh, no, it was not on my radar. I was traveling coast to coast, leading teams, having a great time, and then my mother had vascular dementia. She'd already been diagnosed, but she was very high functioning, so it wasn't really a big concern. And then my dad got Parkinson's, and I had never even been around anyone who had Parkinson's. So I had no clue about what I was doing. So I was quickly researching and studying and trying to find all this information and trying to learn everything that I could. And I was having trouble finding the information that was actionable, useful, and helpful. I found a lot about the steps and stages of the disease and what's going on in his brain, but I needed, how on earth do I deal with hallucinations and delusions? Because I've never been around anybody who has this.
Yeah.
So out of my struggles and out of learning so many things the hard way, that's why I got certified after after my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's passed away and my dad with Parkinson's passed away. Then I got my certifications and learned so many things that would have been so much more helpful had I known them earlier.
Right.
And so my passion is, I don't want other caregivers to struggle like I did. I can cut their learning curve by years, and they don't have to go through what I did, because it was not easy.
Yeah, no kidding. My mother also had dementia, so I know a lot of the struggles and challenges, a lot of the requirement to be a pretty fierce advocate, because you have to cut through the medical system. So we're going to talk about that kind of thing shortly as well, how to do that, and how to coordinate the bazillions of parties that are involved in this whole and navigate that system. But first, tell us just a little bit more about you. So what do you do? You know, what makes you laugh? Where do you live? Tell us a little bit about you personally.
Well, I live in Oklahoma City, and my grandchildren bring me enormous joy. I have 8 of them.
Oh.
And yeah, they're so entertaining. They're so much fun. I just love them. So, and you mentioned earlier something that people might not know. I've lived in 3 countries.
Oh, okay.
So I was in Japan for 3 years and in Canada for 3 years,
Oh,
and then the US the rest of the time. So it really makes you have an appreciation for how spoiled we are in the US when you
yeah,
live somewhere else.
absolutely. Where in Canada did you live?
I lived outside of Toronto at a city called Oakville, Ontario.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Been there, done that. Lived in Toronto for 5 years as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm Canadian and I'm in Calgary, but I spend a lot of time in the States. So there's quite a big difference between the two cultures, even though they're both very similar in a lot of ways. There's a big difference between um,
Yes.
kind of how Canadians think and approach things. Mind you, Torontonians and people in Ontario are more like Americans than most of the rest
Yes.
of the country.
Yes.
So how was it for you living in Japan? What was that like?
Japan was where I really learned to appreciate a lot of the things in the US, like a driveway. I
Yeah,
didn't have one. We parked a block away and you carried your groceries for a full block and then up the stairs and to the compound area and then up the stairs to the apartment. So that was a big change.
yeah. And a lot denser population and smaller accommodations, things like that, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's no fun to be 9 months pregnant and trying to use a Japanese toilet that's 3 inches off the ground.
Yes, that's true. When I traveled, like I
Yes.
tell you, when I came back from traveling through Central and South America for 7 months, and I've traveled around the world for quite a bit, I gained such an appreciation for toilets. Like
Yes.
I love our toilets. We have toilet seats. They're taller than, and they're not, you don't have to squat over a hole in the ground, which is still
Yes.
quite popular in big cities like in Paris and stuff. It's just, oh, there's so many things that I appreciate about our toilets. You could flush
Exactly.
them. There's so many things
Yes.
that other countries don't have, including well-developed ones. So yes, all
Absolutely.
right. Sorry.
That's
So
okay.
tell us a little bit more about the work you do now.
Well, now after getting my certifications, then what I do is consult with caregivers one on one. And I do that via Zoom because it's so much easier for them. I know firsthand how difficult it is to round up your loved ones, get them all dressed, get them ready to go, and take them out to another location, and then worry about them while you're trying to talk to someone. So I consult via Zoom so that they can stay in the comfort of their own home. They can have eyes on their loved one. Generally, they'll schedule when their loved one is sleeping or something like that, if they take a nap at the regular time of day, so that they can talk to me and tell me what their issues are, and I can help them either with solutions, suggestions, things to do, to make their life safer and easier.
So do you do that as a coaching model? Do you have a membership? Is it kind of a one-off consulting thing? How do you do that?
Right now, it's just one-on-one consultations. I've done consultations with families also, working mediation, especially when they don't understand the disease, they don't understand what the caregiver is trying to tell them and the support that they need. There's no comprehension, and so then I do education for them and helping them see things from the standpoint of the caregiver to help them to collaborate and work together better. Later, I plan on doing membership sites and all that, but I'm just getting it going professionally. I've done it just for free for years. And my sweet husband was like, I love it that you're helping people, but you're killing me.
I can appreciate that. Well, and you came out of a corporate background, right?
Yes,
What
yes.
did you do in your previous life?
Training and development is where my passion was. And so I was very used to a linear process where you do 1, 2, 3, and you get four. Quickly discovered dementia is not like that. It twists and curves and goes back on itself, which is why I named my company the Purple Vine. Purple for Alzheimer's, and then Vine because it does the curving and changing direction, and you have to be really fluid. You have to be flexible in a caregiving model where I didn't have to be in a training model, training and education.
Right. So probably could have just retired from corporate.
Hmm.
What made you decide you wanted to build a business and go into this and do this work, you know, at this stage of your life?
Well, it it was because of the dramatic things that happened. I didn't I didn't want to retire from my business. I was loving my job and traveling coast to coast, having a blast. But when dad took mom's pills by mistake, he had low blood pressure, she had high blood pressure. He was nearly comatose, and I'm on the coast. And again, I live in Oklahoma, long ways away. And
Yeah.
then I was on the other coast when mom passed out at the Daily Living Center and had to be rushed to the hospital. I couldn't quickly get there. And then you add to that my mother-in-law who locked herself out of her house in the middle of a snowstorm. And I was in Colorado. So it just, it was obvious that there was a big need, that things were getting worse.
Mhm.
And that's where, I was just really naive because I knew their diagnosis,
Yeah.
but it still didn't register to me that they were not going to stay at this competent level. I thought I had things in place. I had mom and dad going to the daily living center. They'd come and pick them up, take them there. I would fix the medication boxes and get them all ready at the beginning of the week. And I thought everything was going to be fine for quite a while, and it wasn't.
Mhm.
So somebody had to become a caregiver and take care of them. And so that was me.
And so one of the challenges that a lot of people face, and especially a lot of women later in life, is it's kind of assumed that they will become the caregiver. There's often challenges within families about who's going to do this, how is this going to
Mhm.
get handled. It has an impact on your income and your career path. How
Oh,
did
yeah.
you make that decision? How did you come to that decision?
I have a few control issues. And when we were talking about my mom and dad, um, I have two brothers and a sister, but my sister lives out on the coast, so she was an automatic out. And it just, I don't know, just looking at the situation. And my brother, my one of my brothers, moved back from Florida to be here, and it was a tremendous help because I had called him and said, I got to have some help. I can't do all this. And we figured out because dad would not move in with me. He wanted to stay in his home. And so my brother and his wife moved up here. And instead of building his home, which was what he planned on doing, we instead said, hey, can they live with you while they build their home?
Right,
And so my brother and sister-in-law moved in with mom and dad because then it's dad helping them.
right,
It's not the other way around, which made all the difference.
right.
So they took care of the evening shift, I took care of the day shift, and it was fantastic. He was such a huge help in that.
It is a tremendous amount of work, and I don't think a lot of people understand how much time and effort it takes, and it has an economic impact too. So that's one of the things that you probably work with a lot of caregivers on is that realization that this is not just an occasional running them to an appointment. This is a
Yes.
dedicated process once they get to a certain point.
Exactly. And there's no one solution because we kept dad in his home until he passed away. My mother-in-law moved in with us the last year of her life, and she passed away here in our home. And my mom, at the end of her journey, I had to move her to an assisted living or memory care facility. And it just broke my heart. I felt like I let her down. All these things going through my head that turned out to be all guilt that was misplaced that I was putting on myself. Because when we put mom into that facility, she blossomed.
Yeah,
She loved it. She had new friends. There was activities. There were things going on. She was just zipping around all over the place. She had the time of her life. And it was great for me because I no longer had to be the mean person,
yeah,
making her take her medicine, making her eat her food, making her do all these things. I could become the daughter again and just enjoy her. And we just had a great time then doing silly things and dancing and doing all kinds of things. So it's not, you're not letting them down. If you have to put them into a facility, sometimes that is the best option. So I
absolutely.
help them to evaluate the situation and look at the situation and look at the options,
Mhm.
learn what your options are, and then you can make an informed decision. And you're right, even if they're in a care facility, you're still a caregiver. You
Yeah.
still have to advocate for them. You still have to monitor everything. And so it's a continual process.
It really is. When my mom was in a care facility, we couldn't get her into the ones that we liked. because sometimes there's big, long, in fact, I think always going forward now, there's long waiting lists. And
Yes.
and so she was in one that I didn't like, was quite a ways out, was in a small town near the city I live in, and just didn't have a good atmosphere. The staff were not happy. You could tell the staff were
Mm.
not happy. And I would go out there and find out things that were very distressing. She started to have, like you said, they sometimes have delusions or things. And my mom is not an easy woman to deal with. So let me tell you right
Mm.
away that, you know, and sometimes as they get into these different issues, they become surly.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
she was she was surly going in, and she just got worse. So um, uh,
Oh.
there were times where, for instance, I'd go in and she was so totally distressed and distraught because she thought there were bugs all over everywhere, including
Oh.
in her bed and all over her. And so she
Mm-hmm.
was completely beside herself. And I tried to show her, see, Mom, these are not bugs on the windowsill. These are air bubbles in the paint. And tried to show her running a knife over it. No, see, nothing happens. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't register. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had to sit down with the staff who were being really mean to her because she was almost hysterical, and
Oh.
say, look, we need a solution for this. Take a
Mm-hmm.
spray bottle of water, put a label on it that says bug spray, and just
Mm-hmm.
spray her room every day. She
Yes.
calmed down. Once they did that, she calmed down. She thought it was taken care of. She no longer had the issues. She got to sleep,
Right.
but she couldn't sleep because she thought there's bugs in their bed.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lot more manageable from that point forward. But had I not been there, had I not advocated, because they were they were all for just medicating her into a stupor. That was their,
Right.
because they just simply didn't have the manpower to deal with her kind
Right.
of histrionics. So um, you need to be there and you need to see what's going on, and you need to sometimes really push and advocate with the care team or whoever it is, because they're stretched thin as well. And
Yes.
sometimes dealing with difficult people can make them quite mean. So they would often leave her, for instance, in soiled diapers, and leave her, bed unchanged when she wet it, things like that.
Oh.
I had to get really snarky with them about that. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
they would have kept doing it. So you really do have to advocate for people, hopefully not in that kind of a dire circumstance, but that's the kind of thing that they need an advocate for.
Absolutely. And let me say, good job. Congratulations on
Thank
coming up
you.
with a solution. And that's what you have to do too. You just have to get really creative in so many of the situations, and then you can solve that hallucination or that delusion. And like you said, then once she sees the bug spray, make it go away. It goes away and brings her calm. So well
Yeah,
done.
exactly. Thank you. So you mentioned before about carrying a lot of guilt about not being able to have your mother live with you, but actually it being a real blessing. That's also my experience. And by the way, before we go into the emotional side of this, I want to say, do you talk to people about dealing with their parents and sexual issues? Because I got to tell you, one of the things that I know from dealing with my mother, who was always a very sexual woman, is seniors' homes are hotbeds of sexuality and the highest rising rate of STDs anywhere. And so it is something that you actually have to address and deal with, and especially if they have dementia, because they may be making choices that are not healthy. So is that something that you work with caregivers as well?
I absolutely. I haven't had a lot of cases of that, but we did experience it firsthand with my grandmother, who would go visit all these little men in their bedrooms, and they weren't complaining, but the wives of those little men were complaining.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, and she got kicked out of the home. It's like, really? So, yeah, you can. There's nothing that's off limits. And the interesting thing is that most caregivers feel like their situation is so bizarre that no one will understand. And that's where I can help as well, because I was a secondary caregiver for grandparents, but I was a primary caregiver for my mom, my dad, and my mother in law. And so I've seen a lot, and I understand what the caregiver's going through, and I believe them. And
Yeah,
sometimes that's a huge thing because it was for me when my husband's family just couldn't imagine the bizarre behavior that I was describing because their sweet, precious, quiet little mother in law who never cussed, never said a bad word, didn't talk ill about people. They couldn't fathom how I was saying, she threw a glass of tea at me. She's cussing like a sailor, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but,
There's
you know,
quite a bit of changes.
yeah.
So if you are listening to this and you are a caregiver, I just want to say, please know that inhibitions go down as people get older in general. Frankly, their give a shit factor goes down. They just don't anymore. And they're lonely and they want people to take care of them. And they need connection, especially if they're scared because they're losing some of their faculties. And so
Mhm.
often the sex rate in most and they often switch partners fairly often because there's different standards and different approaches that go on there. So please supply your loved ones with contraception, with condoms and so forth. Remind them how to use them, remind them that there's a lot of diseases because of course it is an insular community. So once one has it, they often switch partners. It becomes a pretty rampant thing. It's not an easy conversation to have, but hey, it wasn't
No,
when they had to have it with you when you were young. So now turnabout is fair play. It's time to go
that's
back,
true.
have that conversation. Um,
Hmm.
okay, but let's talk about the emotional side of this. And because you mentioned the guilt, you go through a tremendous amount of frustration and anger and challenges when you're dealing with the systems, with their irrationality, with people not understanding, with all of the demands on you. There's a lot that goes on emotionally, but there's also a tremendous amount of grief because I think you really lose people three times. You lose them when they start to lose their faculties and their mind. You really lose them when they no longer remember you and you've lost that connection, even though the connection is still there. And then when they physically die. And so you're grieving at various stages in various ways along the way. What advice would you have for people about dealing with all of the emotions that go with this kind of process?
Well, I agree with you first off, but let me say that the grieving doesn't stop and end with the diagnosis, and then you have a break until this other point. It continues. It goes all the way through, and you're continually grieving the loss. I'll speak about my mother since she was the most recent, because you would, grieve each step of it. Oh, she can't form sentences anymore. She's hallucinating more. Then you go through all these little things that she can't do anymore, and then you get to the fact that she doesn't recognize you, and it just rips your heart out. And in my case, the first time she didn't recognize me, I had to step out into the hall and take a deep breath, and then all my words that I tell other people came back to my memory. And so, but I had to take it from my head and put it into my heart and understand that they still love you. They still care about you. They're just a little confused about the connection. But I would say that the best thing that caregivers can do for themselves is to focus on the things that they can still do. Because even when mom couldn't talk anymore, we still had laughter because I would get down to eye level and look at her and make a crazy face. And then she would make a crazy face back at me, and we'd both laugh. So you can still find joy. It gets harder to find it sometimes, but if you're just focused on all that they can't do and you're so depressed over that, you're robbing yourself of a lot of joyful moments. And
Mm,
so that's another thing where I help caregivers reframe your focus to the things that you're thankful for, that you're grateful for. Focus on the positive instead of the negative.
mm. Absolutely. I think that's really important, especially when being with them and for your own sake. And there is still a lot of anger and frustration. And so, I would heartily recommend people get therapeutic help as they're going through this. Don't try and do it alone. Um,
Hmm.
Deal with people who've been there and done that and can relate. There's often groups that support. So, for instance, my best friend Mary her mother had dementia, and they joined something called Memory Plus, a group
Mm-hmm.
for dementia patients and their caregivers to come together and do things to strengthen their memory, to help them. They'd use music. Music is a very powerful memory aid. They'd use a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different things, games and so forth, that they could do with their loved ones. And it would really help. The downside of a group like that is that many times there's a lot of people who pass away, and so the group is constantly evolving in that way. And it can be a tremendous help to be there and see you're not alone in that struggle. So there are resources available. What's a good way for people to find out about the resources available in their area?
Well, they can't, depending on what the disease is, because education is so important. What I would suggest they do is to go online and research whatever disease, whatever ailment, whatever they're dealing with. Research that, learn about everything that you can about it. If it's Alzheimer's, then go to alz.org. That's going to give you loads of information about the disease, and not as much about how to deal with it, but they can go to my website to learn about that, which is thepurplevine.com. And I tell you practical tips and practical ideas and information that you can use. Then that is the huge part of it, is researching Parkinson's. The Parkinson's Foundation is fantastic for giving you information. The Mayo Clinic covers everything. You can go to there to learn about all sorts of it. And then I work with people individually, because I had a lady tell me, who lived in a big city. She lived in Chicago, and she says, there's no resources around me. Oh, goodness, honey, there's a lot. So I researched for her and then sent her all the links so that she didn't have to mess with it. But she was in such a state of overwhelm that she couldn't see the solution, and she couldn't find the solution, and she was too frustrated. So there again, that's where I step in and say, okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah.
Let me do this. And I'll do the research and find it and find the connections and information or whatever and send it to them.
What a gift you are. So one of the things you can do is, of course, contact Debbie and tell us a little bit about your website, and other contacts. So the Purple Vine or Purple Vine, what is it again?
Yes, thepurplevine.com.
Mhm.
And I have a blog there where you can read about content and read about things. I also have an email list that you can sign up for. I just email once a week because nobody has time to be bombarded with loads of email. Again, I understand that. There's a lot of freebies that I give away and things on my email list as well. So, and then, they can always email me at Deb Compton, the number one, at gmail.com.
Okay.
So, and then I can set them up. And the free, I'll do a free consultation. The initial consultation be
Yep.
totally free, because a lot of people don't understand what it's about, don't know if it's for them or not. And so that's okay. Just bring your biggest question and come and we'll talk. And then if you find it valuable, then, you may want to purchase some packages. If not, then okay, that's fine.
So, and tell us about your book. Show us your books related
Yeah.
to the topic.
Well, the first one that I wrote is called Caregiving: How to Hold On While Letting Go. That's me and my mother-in-law in the backyard. And she loved to garden, and I love gardening. She was a great help to me. So this has steps and stages of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and vascular dementia in it. And then it also has activities you can do with them at different stages. It has just loads of information and mainly encouragement too, for caregivers. And I tell you, I don't just tell you one way. This is not how you solve the problem. Because, for example, we call it the loop-de-loop that mom used to be in. She would just repeat, repeat, repeat. Well, again, I have three siblings and we all handled it different ways. And so I put all three of the way or four of the ways that we handled it in the book, because my way might work one day, my brother's way might work another day, my sister's might work another day. So you need as many options as you can get to
Yeah.
try different things. So
Yeah.
that's what I do, is I tell you, hey, try this, try this, try this. And I had one individual say, well, why don't you just say this is the solution? because there's not one for sure.
Right.
We were all unique individuals before the disease. We're unique individuals after the disease.
Yeah,
So, and
absolutely.
then the disease changes you. So, like I said, what worked today might not work tomorrow. And
Exactly.
then this one is Sunshine for the Soul,
Yeah.
and it's SON. And so I created this because I wanted to keep mom reading. Reading helps the mind, helps you stay engaged, great for your brain. And so, but she was having trouble with her eyesight and she couldn't follow plots anymore. So I was spending the majority of my time explaining the plot and going through the whole thing. And it was so frustrating to me. So when my dad passed away, dad had pastored small country churches. And so if you know anything about a small country church, when there's a job that no one wants to do, the pastor's wife gets to do it. And so my mom became the bulletin maker or the order of service maker when she had 4 kids running around the house in the days of the typewriter, no spell check, no autocorrect, none of that good stuff. And so dad had kept a bunch of these bulletins in his briefcase. And when I opened it and saw them, I thought, oh my gosh, these are hilarious. I need to share these with people. So that's how this book was born, out of both of those. So it's large print.
Yeah.
It'll have a funny story from our lives or a bulletin blooper, as I call them. And then it'll have some inspirational quotes from actors, judges, Billy Graham, Dr. Seuss, you name it, the quotes from a lot of different people. So the pattern just repeats itself, a Bible verse, a funny story, an inspirational quote. And that pattern just repeats all the way through the book. So you can start at the beginning, the middle, or the end. It doesn't matter. It's going to make you laugh and smile. It'll brighten your day.
Awesome.
And so then for caregivers, for the people who were helping with mom, what I did was use this as a motivational tool.
Mm.
Because when I would catch someone going above and beyond for mom, I'd give them a copy of the book.
Ah,
And yeah, so then it became a competition. Did you get a copy of the book? I did.
that's awesome. Way to
And
inspire them.
yeah, and mom got better care. So it was
Yeah,
perfect.
that's awesome. So
Yeah.
where can they get your books? On your website,
Yep.
obviously. Yeah,
Yep.
but
On my
can they
website
also
and
get
on
them from,
Amazon.
yep.
Yep. They're on Amazon and they're on my website. If you want an autographed copy, just email me or you can go on my website and connect to me through there and I'll autograph it and send it to you. And there's a couple of adult coloring books because, and they're mandalas, just patterns. Because mom colored a little dog blue and a lady started yelling at her that she didn't do it correctly.
Mm.
So we go back to my training and development background, solve the problem. So I created mandalas. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Color it whatever color you want, and nobody can yell at you.
Yes, awesome. Love that. You're so practical in terms of the solutions that you create. So I want to switch tracks for just a moment, and talk a little bit about your journey of starting a business at this stage of life. So yes, you had come out of corporate, but how old were you when you started your business?
63.
63. Okay, so tell us a little bit of what that was like, starting a business at 63.
Well, first off, I never let age be a factor for me. And I get bored, so I just don't see myself as ever being one of those people that's just sitting around doing nothing. I can't do that. And I love a lot of crafts and things like that. So I had the option, and people encouraged me to just do your crafts and enjoy life, but it wasn't enough for me.
Mhm.
And I feel like I went through so much that I need to be helping other people. There's a reason I went through what I did.
Yeah.
And that's so that I can help other people coming behind me to have an easier time. So at 63, I decided, okay, I'm gonna start this business because I talked to a hospice nurse and she saw some of the things that I had done in the house, and she said the words that changed my mind. She said, other caregivers need to know about this. This would really help them.
Mhm.
And I've always had a servant's heart. I've always cared about other people. And when she said that, it was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Because like so many other caregivers, I felt like I was the only one who didn't know how to fix the problem.
Yeah.
I was the last one to the party. Everybody else has it figured out. I'm the only one who doesn't know. Well, that's not true.
Yes.
So
And
that's
that's
why I started it.
awesome. And that's the case for a lot of lot of entrepreneurs start a business based, and especially maturepreneurs start businesses based on solving a problem they wish they had solved for them. Um,
Yes.
they wish they had this help or this answer or this resource. And so they create it for others, but they fail to realize that they are not alone, that what is
Right.
easy for someone is not easy for others. What you know, not everybody knows. And
Right.
how you are able to deal with things, not everybody is able to do that. So that's why it's valuable to take that wisdom and earn some wealth from it by creating
Yeah.
a contribution that is going to make a difference to other people. And really, in reality, in most cases, there are many people who have the same issue that we have, not in the
Right.
millions, certainly in the hundreds of thousands. And so there's always a market. So you mentioned um, it was not enough. So tell me what you mean by it was not enough.
Um, I like a challenge. I like to, and I know that if you want to avoid getting dementia, one of your greatest ways is to keep your brain engaged,
Mm,
to keep reading, playing games, doing things that challenge your mind that make you think. And so while I love doing all these different craft things and stuff, they're not really mentally challenging.
yeah.
And so this would provide that as well, because I think that especially if you've been a caregiver for someone who has dementia, one of the big things on your mind is, am I getting it?
Mm,
And so that's why one of the big speeches that I do is learning the difference between Alzheimer's and normal aging.
mhm,
Because most of us really worry that, oh my gosh, I forgot that I've got dementia. No, you don't. You
right.
know,
Yeah.
everybody forgets where they put the cell phone down. Guess what? If you had dementia, you wouldn't remember you lost the cell phone.
Right. Yeah, that's a good distinction. I love that. So what was one of the biggest challenges or surprises for you in terms of starting a business?
Oh my goodness. Learning all the things. I quickly realized that I did not appreciate my web design team enough when
Mm,
I was in corporate America, because I would go on a whiteboard and draw out what I wanted the website to look like, what I wanted the page to look like, and they would just magically poof, make it happen. And there it was. And then here I find myself struggling and struggling to get one silly little button in the right place, the right color.
yes.
You have to learn so many things. When you go into business for yourself, it's you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different programs and applications and things available out there to you. But and I would say in that, don't compare yourself to people who've been in business for 5 years.
Mhm,
You are just starting. Give yourself some grace.
yes.
And that's like when you ask about the members area. No, I don't have one right now, but it's coming.
Yes, yes. Well, and learn what is in your skill set and what's not, and when to hire other people and when not to. When is it
Yes.
you have to learn how to do because you need to manage the process or you need to, be on top of it. And when is it something that you can hand over and manage, not abdicate, delegate, don't abdicate. And one of
Yes.
the big things, especially, and so I'm really curious about your experience of the difference between being an entrepreneur and being an employee. Because one of the things that, after 40 years of doing this, that still boggles my mind is most people that don't think, they think they can learn the thing, like how to be a caregiver and how to take care of that side of things, but they don't think they have to learn how to be a business person. You would never become a surgeon and think you don't have to learn how to do surgery, that you can just read a few books and away you go. But they do
Right.
think that they can be an entrepreneur without learning anything about entrepreneurialism. So, what for you was the biggest change between being an employee and being your own boss or being an entrepreneur?
I think just the whole doing it myself. I had the advantage of early on, really early on in my career. My dad was an entrepreneur and he ran his own businesses. And so I managed the office for him a few times. So I had firsthand experience at small companies, and in dealing in that. So I had some knowledge to that, a little bit to that, but dad still had a team. And when you start a business, you don't have the team. But like you said, you don't have to be a pro at everything, because you can go to Fiverr
Yeah,
and hire somebody really cheap to take care of something so that you don't waste that time struggling with it for so long. And right, you don't automatically just know how to run a business. You need to attend a lot of classes. You need to learn from experts, get a mentor, join together with people. Went to, I invested a lot of money in trainings
Mhm.
so that I would understand what it was that I needed to do. And I still go attend training classes and things because I don't think you've ever fully arrived. There's always something else, and the world is changing so fast that there's always, you have to keep pedaling fast. You can't coast.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And like any profession, you have to stay up on top of it. Once
Hmm.
you become a doctor, you still have to study new medications, new techniques, new whatever. Same thing with business. So, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's later in life and thinking about launching a business, or they have an idea, or they see a need and they want to solve it? What advice would you give them? What advice
Well,
do you wish you had gotten before you launched your business?
that's a good question. Um, SCORE is really good at offering free information and free trainings to small business owners. It's SCORE. And so that's a fantastic resource. You don't have to have money for everything. I barter whenever possible. And I've done that with copywriting even, because the copywriter that I wanted did a fantastic job. And as we talked in conversation, I found out that she was also a caregiver. Here you go. Let's collaborate. You do some copywriting for me. I'll do some sessions for you. So I think being creative and resourceful, giving yourself some grace, that's the thing. I'm not good at the patience part of it. I'm the same way. It's like I want to have all this stuff done, and you're not going to wake up one morning and it's magically done. So you have to give yourself some grace and appreciate the small wins. Celebrate the small wins. We got it. We did this part. This was great. This post looks amazing. Yes, my website needs work, but this post looks amazing.
Yes, and done and out is better than perfect and never published. So
Absolutely.
that's part of that grace piece, is to get over your perfectionist self and get into action. All right, and
Hmm.
I could talk to you forever, and we've gone kind of long, but it's such an important topic and there's so many aspects to it. So again, Deb, what kind of final advice would you have for people around, especially around for caregivers? What's one piece of advice you would give a caregiver who is perhaps just at the beginning of their journey?
Get educated, learn everything that you can, and and you touched on it just recently too when you said let go of perfectionism, because that's my number one thing. You have to let go of perfectionism, which was a challenge for me because it's not going to be perfect. If you're dealing with these diseases, like if it's a form of dementia, it's not going to be perfect. And a super good example of that was I took my mother-in-law and my mom to the optometrist, one with Alzheimer's, one with vascular dementia. First off, that's not a brilliant idea, but I did because I wanted to save time. So I figured two for one. Let's just take them both. So we finally got there. We made it on time. I was so excited. Everybody's dressed, has their teeth in, fully clothed, the whole bit. And I looked down, and my mom is wearing two different shoes. And so that's a chance to go, oh, and that was just my initial thought. I blew it. And I immediately caught myself and said, no, I didn't. It's okay. It doesn't matter. We're here. They're fine. It doesn't matter. So go ahead and celebrate the fact that we actually made it and made it on time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such brilliant advice, is really, really being with what matters.
Yes.
Different color socks or shoes don't matter for any of
Nope.
us at any point in life, whether we have dementia or not. But really,
Right.
especially that,
Just
yeah,
just laugh. And that's the part of it, that I'm always teaching people. Laugh about it. It's
yeah,
okay. Other people find it funny. You
yeah.
find it funny too. That's the secret to reducing your stress. Laugh faster.
Yes. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for being here, Debbie Compton. I really appreciate it. And again, go to thepurplevine.com for more information and to connect with Debbie. And especially if you are starting this journey as a caregiver, it can be a very challenging and very lonely time and experience, certainly with lots of emotional ups and downs, lots of emotional ups and downs. So get support, call in a ton of support. And if you suck at that, call in support for being able to get support. Okay, because you need to get good at being what I call a mighty receiver, someone who can call in all sorts of resources and support for you so that you can take care of you, so that you have more to be able to take care of those that you love. Fill your cup first. Make sure,
Yes.
that old adage of put your oxygen mask on first is so important in this situation. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for all the heart you bring to it and all the people that you help, because there's such a ripple effect. When, one caregiver is grounded and taking care of themselves, they're able to show up for others, which makes the lives easier of the people around them. So it ripples out in such a beautiful way. So thank you for the work you do, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you would like more information on how you can become a maturepreneur, please click the link below or in the show notes and book a call with me about what's next, what might be involved. And if you are a caregiver who is looking for some support, please book a call with Debbie. She is a great resource for you. Have a bodacious week, everybody. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.